Hey there, YouTube. One more thing regarding this video. I do want to point out that it wasn't just Bering that got doxxed. It was Bering and Sugar Tits both got doxxed. And Sugar Tits, other than being the fact that she is the significant other of Bering, had little or nothing to do with any of the content that Bering had put out, or anything that he had said, or any disagreements that between Bering and Kristi Winters, or Bering and any of the social justice people at all. So, wanted to put that out, throw that out there that the Sugar Tits was part of that dox, and is what, collateral damage, I suppose. Not cool. Hey there, YouTube. SkepticalRoot. I had planned on, as you watch, nobody watched my last video. I had one view. It might have been mine. I laid out a couple of topics that I wanted to touch on, and it's too much drama. I don't want to necessarily be a drama channel, even though those get views, those get subs, those get all the fun stuff that everybody wants as a YouTube content creator. I'm going to back away from that a bit and get back more to doing atheist type stuff. I still have my Peter Creeps list of topics to go through. But I did want to address the Bering Kristi Winters doxing fiasco, controversy, whatever you want to call it. I've watched probably all the videos that Bering's put out for it, and I've watched, I would say, well, I watched all of Kristi's direct videos that she's put out about it. I've watched a couple of her related videos to it, and one or two of the hangouts that she's talked about it. And really it comes down to, I think, that Kristi Winters is being extremely dishonest and is shifting the goalposts a lot with regards to where she stands on it. Now, to be clear, when all this first happened, I think that Bering probably, well, you know what, I'll tell you what, Bering had a theory, and he's found evidence that has supported different aspects of it, and I think his position has changed on where he feels Kristi Winters fell in the culpability of doxing. You know, Kristi herself has called this shifting the goalposts, but I think that's not shifting the goalposts. I think it's following where his evidence has led him, and he's changed his position based on what he's found and what people have said and told him and whatever. I don't know the quality of his evidence. I don't know what exactly it is in particular. I have not seen it Bering sit down and do, here's what I have, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. I've watched, for example, when he talked to Demotivated Opinion about it, Tim Blake, I believe is his proper name, and he's okay with that being out there. Every time Bering tried to talk about the stuff, Tim would basically shut him down, shut him up, distract from basically Bering making a list of here's point A, here's point B, here's point C. Bering has made several videos where he talks about, in particular, the things that he says at whatever time. This is Kristi Winters saying this, here's her doing this, that, the other thing. I don't think that Bering has taken anything out of context. From the information that I've seen, including the video that Kristi Winters put out where she said that she got a screen capture of the Encyclopedia Dramatica page on the date that the page was made, whatever. Whether she was there on that day or a couple days later, it doesn't matter. My point And what I've asked is in comments on a couple of her videos, they have not necessarily been well received. I'm probably muted by her at this point. I don't think I'm blocked, but I am probably muted. My only question or concern is, did Kristi Winters at any time share information with Bering's personal information in it? It is extremely troubling, the position that she claims to take for what is and isn't doxing. Every time she makes an argument about it, every time she talks about Bering, she starts with Bering, this guy who stole somebody's artwork to make videos, and then sold sold merchandise with this stolen image on it. That's all poisoning the well. None of that has anything to do with whether or not she in any way engaged in sharing private information about Bering with anybody. We know for a fact that she has shared information. She has linked to the Encyclopedia Dramatica page. She has shown... Here's an example. She did a video... No, she edited a video from another YouTuber whose name I can't recall. They have a mouse icon with a anonymous mask over it. I don't know who. It is from I can't remember the name of the channel. I took a screen capture back right when what she did is she went and she took this video and she went and she redacted out all of the personal information of Bering. Or any of that type of information. Which, you think, okay, that's fine. However, she then put a link to the original video in the description. The unredacted version. So in trying to show how the timeline doesn't work, or any of that information, she linked back to the original that includes all of the information. That is... How is it any different than, and including all the times that she linked to the Encyclopedia Dramatica page in comments and posts saying, "Oh yeah, I'm not sharing his information, but it's right over here. Here's a link to it. Go here. You'll find it on Encyclopedia Dramatica." Including, but not limited to, her first video that she put out about it, where she said, "I'm not going to mention the website. I'm not going to talk about it. This happened, whatever." And then you scroll down into the comments and she's referring to Encyclopedia Dramatica. She's telling you where it is. So you go to ED and you type in Bering and, oh, hey, look, there's the page. That's sharing information. That is her arguments, too, that Bering said in a stream with Dusty Smith that it would be fairly easy to dox him. Okay, that's not doxing. That's also blaming the victim. Just like the fact that his information was out there and it was available. The fact that somebody went out and got it and put it together and where anybody could find it, and then shared that information. Honestly, if the information was already out there, no, hadn't been collected by anybody or put out there by anybody, then it's security through obscurity. I mean, it's not a good way to go, but at the same time, it's not being shared by everybody. It's not out there in the trollosphere. The fact that it was somebody put it together, and then Kristi Winters pointed people to that information. Here's where you can find it. That's doxing. If it was already out there, that's fine. Sharing that with other people, that's the part that's the doxing. That is the part where you get someone's personal information out there. You share it with other people who don't need or have any right to that information. It's ridiculous. But because Kristi Winters doesn't agree with Bering, she doesn't like Bering, that's okay. And she repeatedly goes out of her way to exploit the fruits of that doxing for her own ends. Bering is a person who has a YouTube channel called Bering. He has another channel as well. But referring to that person by the information that was received through the docs, it's just as bad as calling Thunderfoot by his proper name, Philip Mason. He's okay at this point with that information being out there. He's kind of accepted that it's out there. But his channel's Thunderfoot. He goes by Thunderfoot as his brand. Calling him Dr. Mason or Philip Mason, usually Philip Mason, because you don't want to acknowledge the fact that he has a doctorate. Much like you, Kristi. You continue to exploit the fruits of that doxing. You make it more okay to do that. And that's shit. That is the crime itself, is sharing that information and sharing it over and over and over and over again. That's the crime. That is the... I don't want to use the rape analogy because it's overdone and it's extreme, but let's use it as an assault. The crime is being assaulted, and sharing it is one more punch, one more kick. Every time you share it, you're continuing to inflict the damage. Just because somebody got punched in the face, that does not mean that it's okay to punch them in the face 3 and 4 and 5 times. That compounds the assault. Just because they've been assaulted doesn't mean that it's okay to keep doing it. And that's the shitty part. And Kristi Winters will probably never see this video, although it would be nice if people linked her to it. I might even tweet it at her, because this is ridiculous. Sharing the information is the bad part. Having it be out there is bad enough. Spreading it around is where the actual damage is done. There's no two ways around it. I don't know. I expect more from people with doctorates, especially in the social sciences. I expect them to understand that. I think Kristi Winters does understand that. I just don't think that she cares. And by I don't think she cares, what I mean is, of course, that because Bering falls under a different ideological group than her, that it's okay. He's an outsider. He's not only an outsider, he's opposition. And so the bad things that happen to them are okay. Or they're at least not as bad. And yes, I will continue to point out that 2 other things that Kristi has mentioned. First off, when Bering was made aware that there could be trouble with his bear avatar, he did change it. He went from the bear to the bear sitting in a chair that Sugar Tits had drawn up. And I will go back to saying again, as I said in my previous video on this topic, copyright and trademark are 2 different things. Bering did not take the bear in the context of the video that it was in and do something with it that was using that same bear. He didn't voice over it or something like that. Bering's use of the bear in his videos is probably not a violation of copyright. I don't think Bering necessarily wants to go to court to fight that. And that's fine. I'm not a lawyer. I have just looked into this matter myself a bit. I have listened to lawyers talk about this, and there is an understanding in cases like this that, and everybody that's using the Mickey Mouse analogy, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this before, stop, because Mickey Mouse is trademarked. Mickey Mouse comics are also copyrighted. you being in the movies and all the kind of stuff, Disney owns both of those things, the copyright and the trademark. Total Drama Island did not own the trademark. Using the bear on a shirt would be the use of a trademark, and that bear was not trademarked. No, it's not his. Yes, that can be considered shitty. I'll take bearing at his word that he didn't really think about it and chalk it up to innocent ignorance or something like that. And let it go. But harping on it, as Kristi Winters does nothing but other than poison the well. It is not an argument. It is an ad hominem attack, because it is, the idea is that it besmirches the person instead of challenging their arguments. So, Kristi, if you have things to say about whether or not Bering is correct about the things that he says about your involvement in his doxing, that's fine. I don't know what you're possibly going to do with a part 3 of your how Bering punked his fans thing, because I've watched part 1 and part 2, and they were almost identical. I watched your hangout with Kevin Logan, which... Sorry, I get a little twitch when I think about Kevin Logan. The entire hangout could have been... Was it Kevin Logan? I think it was Kevin Logan. Your entire hangout could have been about 8 minutes long, because you just repeated yourself 4 and 5 times in the discussion, saying the same things over and over again. And then when you went off on a tangent, you'd come back to saying the same things you said over and over again, which was very much what your first and second videos were. It was a lot of repetitive stuff. And this video is getting way too long for as involved as I wanted to be in this thing. So I have been a subscriber of yours much longer, Kristi, than I have of Bering's. And I don't know. It drives me nuts that somebody who I thought was rational, someone who I thought was skeptical, could be so defensive of a position that they shouldn't necessarily be defending. You had plenty of opportunity to back off and say, you know what, maybe I did something wrong. Let me at least apologize for that and correct myself. But instead, you double down on it and you continue to share that information with other people. If I go back right now, I wonder if I could probably still find those references to the Encyclopedia Dramatica in your video comments that you put there. That's shit. Sharing the information. And at this point, I mean, it wouldn't even make sense at this point to necessarily go back and delete those comments, except to say that you are no longer then continuing to punch Berg in the face. So that's it. I don't know if I'll do my other videos about that I mentioned in the last video. Who knows? I want to get back to less dramatic content. Directly dramatic content. I'm going to do more response videos, I think, but at the same time, I wanted to address this because for all intents and purposes, the drama is probably over unless Kristi Winters can find some way to stir it up again, because that gets her views. I don't necessarily begrudge her that, but I think that that doxing somebody for views or scrubbing whatever views you can out of allegations of doxing, instead of, and essentially participating in the doxing by sharing links to and referencing people to the page. That's shitty. That's terrible. That is not something that a good person does. That is not somebody with strong ideas does. That's a weak person. That's a shallow person. That is, I'll get you my pretties kind of person. I really wish you weren't like that. So, I guess that's it. So, thanks for watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe. This ended up being a lot longer than I intended. And I these unscripted stream of consciousness things tend to. But we'll see. So that's it for everybody. That's it for everybody. That's it from me. So goodbye and hello. As always.
If it doesn't,